So sometimes at lunch again, I go down rabbit holes. So I watched the creator's post and I extrapolated some of her data and kind of came up with completely different conclusions than she did, which I thought was interesting. Do single mothers have less or more leisure time in this study than married women? This is basically a study by ATUS. It's essentially a study that looks over 8,500 people across different sections, single, married, with children, no children, and like division of labor basically is really what it goes over. But it comes to a completely different conclusion. In her conclusion, in her video, she talks about how obviously women have an increased amount of leisure that's available once they become single moms. But the data doesn't show that. And in fact, this is directly from the data that she's highlighting in her post, which I thought was fascinating. Like, why not just anecdotally, maybe there are people out there like that, but the data doesn't show that. So I'm going to show screenshots before any questions arise. It goes on to basically identify what these leisurely studies are or what these leisurely activities could be. So let's continue. So employed women with children is what it breaks down. It says single versus married. ATUS microdata analysis shows single mothers often have less leisure than married mothers among the employed due to sole responsibility for childcare and household tasks. Okay? It also shows the same data, oddly enough, for not employed women with children. Single mothers typically have less leisure here too. Historical ATUS data suggests not employed single mothers average 5 to 5.3 hours due to full childcare and household demands, while not employed mothers average between 5.7 and 6.1, benefiting from potentially spousal support. So again, her conclusion on her video is not correct. Here's a conclusion that AI basically comes up with in 2023. ATUS single mothers have less leisure time than married women with children across both employed and not employed groups. Employed single mothers average 21.7 per week, 24.5 per week for married mothers, and not employed single mothers, yada yada. The lack of a partner to share unpaid work drives this disparity. So the conclusion is incorrect on this creator's post. I also asked, do household chores increase or decrease, right? Because if we're talking about just childcare, okay, does household increase or decrease? I think sometimes people just look at data incorrectly, or they go in with a confirmation bias or a bias in their own minds, and the data sometimes doesn't point where you want it to point. I don't know what to tell you. Hey, here we go. You can pause to read here. Feel free to pause to read. Married women with children slightly lower, as some tasks may be shared with a spouse. Given your earlier data, married men without children at 6.2 hours assume minimal but non-zero help. Again, this is anecdotal. If you have zero help in the household, it's completely different, right? But we're going off the data here. Again, feel free to pause to read here, but it does say single mothers not employed higher due to no spouse support. Okay, so it's not less, right? It's more hours that they're spending on housework because now they are single. They don't have someone else to help. Overall trends. Okay. So does the housework increase or decrease? Single mothers with married women with children. Single mothers' housework increases. Non-employed single mothers' housework increases. Overall, single mothers average over married mothers increase of 2.7 hours. So again, your data is incorrect, or your extrapolation of the data is incorrect, because this is pulling directly from ATUS. And it comes with several different conclusions. No partner contribution. I thought that was a duh, but household demands, children increase mess and maintenance, and without a partner, single mothers absorb this fully, which would mean it increases. You say it decreases. That doesn't make any sense. Conclusion: household work increases for single mothers compared to married women with children in 2023 US data. And I'm not saying this is a knock to this creator, but I am knocking their conclusion on the data. Their data is just unfortunately incorrect, or your conclusion on the data is incorrect. It's not what you think it is. And my biggest problem with it is that once it's put out there, right, you'll see a lot of comments on people like, oh, this is exactly true, and it's not. The data doesn't point there. Your anecdote might, but the data does not. That's it. Bye.